I'm Chris Hartshorn, the Chief Research Officer at Lux Research, and today I'm sitting with Rob Kirschbaum, the VP of Open Innovation at DSM. So, given the plethora of experience and opportunities you've touched open innovation, you've obviously been doing this for a very long time, longer than most people. What is the most misunderstood aspect of open innovation? What's the thing that you see as being not captured or not thought about or misinterpreted? I'm sure there are some things that people don't get about the full picture.
Well, DSM by now has many acquired companies, and they all have different levels of, let's say, accepting and using and profiting from the open innovation principle. Yeah. Applying that is a cultural issue. It will only work if you have a mindset based on trust. And these kind of things take long. We're talking about sharing IP. We're talking about convincing lawyers that there is trust. Well, he wants to have contracts because basically he doesn't believe trust is there. He has to protect situations where people are going to fight. So it's a cultural issue. It takes at least, I would say, 3 to 5 years before you can also see the first fruits. And I remember that the first fruits, which was also shared with the the stock exchange market analyst, was a comparison of two pearls of the portfolio, materials portfolio of DSM, Dyneema and Stanil, a high temperature nylon. And then the chief innovation officer indicated that it took at least 12 years from idea to introduction to the market. And then he compared it with a nutraceutical company which we found in Sweden, and where first with a minority share, later with a majority share, and spinning it in, the product was brought to the market in a time span less than 5 years. So then this was a big comparison, and everybody said, wow, if it's that big from 12 to 5 years, it is very, very important. And I had a discussion on this because it's not really fair to count in this way, because all the troubles before we found that company, they may have been fighting their way up and down for 5 other years, but we don't see that. So when you find a startup company and you start to invest with a minority share, that is counted as T is 0.
Yeah, got it.
But in reality, it is not.
Right. So I actually talked yesterday about the concept of technology scouting should actually be growth scouting.
Yes, yes.
And technology scouting leads to just an understanding of opportunities and growth and hotspots. Is that actually where more of the value comes from? Is from understanding that, or finding very specific technologies? What's your experience?
I think you have indicated 2 fruits from scouting. And it's very difficult to say is one more important than the other. And a generic answer would be that both are very important. But the vision you create by being out there, picking up these signals, talking to people who full-time work on new things, that leads to a stronger story if you go back into the company asking for money to start activities, because the real money is in the companies when you start to build a pilot plant. You have to have the pilot plant for materials to do sampling to potential customers, and for that money you have to have a good story, otherwise you don't get it.
Right.
And there's a lot of competition in the fuzzy front end of the funnel, and that's competition for money, for budgets.
Right, right, got it. Now, going back to something you mentioned before, the idea of internal venturing versus external venturing, and this is all part of the process and part of open innovation. And I'm interested, you said that the idea of looking at internal ventures should be looked at in exactly the same way as an external venture. There are milestones, there are funding steps. Is it really the same process? I mean, how easy is that to look at an internal process with the same investment discipline and criticality and ability to, make good decisions internally versus externally? I'm fascinated by this. It's a big challenge for many large corporations.
Yeah. The honest answer is that only in the ideal world it would look the same.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look the same. Take the speed of decision making. Compare an outside venture which does a financing round. They see the bottom of their financial situation, and this is a few months, and then the money is burnt and they don't have anything left. A few months. If we internally do a discussion on a financing round for a startup company, it takes at least 6 months. From meeting for the first time until a decision on financing. So in the meantime, the company is already bankrupt.
Right.
So the timelines for internal venturing and decision lines are longer. And we want to do it shorter. We want to learn from working with startup companies to be more agile, to be quicker. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
With respect to milestone management, I think we're there.
Okay.
We have a very disciplined project management plan, supported digitally. So if you go to a next phase, it's 5 phases. If you go through a gate and to the next phase, well, it's very disciplinary what you have to have.
So going back to when things first started out on the whole venturing idea and open innovation concept, sounds like one of the first things you do was had to examine the existing portfolio and do a pragmatic cleaning of house, so to speak, to resolve out some of the things that just weren't a fit.
That in fact I did that in the late 90s. That was really cleaning up.
So that's one of the first things. So for someone who's just starting down the open innovation path and innovation management path, probably the first thing they should look at is the existing portfolio and be honest about what exists.
Yes, and what fit. The fit with the corporation is crucial. And value is created, for sure, but whether it can be further brought to commercialization by the company, that is the question. So if you have created value, find a better host for what you have created. And we brought to the outside several activities which now are alive and kicking in other companies.
Got it. So the programs that were that were looked at and were not continued internally, what proportion were just stopped outright? But how many did you find a home for? When you looked at the portfolio, was it more there were good technologies and you could find a home, or was it more this is just not viable?
More than half was not viable.
Yeah.
And we were very happy that a few of the things which were in the portfolio could be brought to other places.
Got it. Okay. So I guess just to finish off, we talked about DSM a lot, and obviously part of the job of open innovation is to look externally and to sense the outside world. Who else does a good job of open innovation? What other companies would you look at and say, yeah, they're picking this up, they've got it, there are features in there that I would like to emulate or learn from? Who do you think is best in class outside of what I believe DSM is?
Let me do it by region. I think that in Europe, I greatly admire companies like Evonik, BASF, Solvay. If we look at Asia, I would say Mitsubishi, very visionary, and also daring to share with us.
Yeah.
In America, DuPont, for sure.
No, it's a who's who of great companies with great technology. So and presumably, and that actually makes them easy to work with from a DSM perspective as well.
Yes,
they have quality open innovation activities.
I have never made that conclusion myself, but you're right. Those are the companies where on the highest level the contacts are very warm. They are sharing things about the future. And you might be in the same market, you might be a competitor, but it's never bad to share thoughts about the future.
Agreed. And that seems like a fine way to finish, to think about the future and how to participate best in corporate open innovation. So, Rob, thanks so much for your time. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.